I didn't walk out because I was emotional. I walked out because I finally understood something I had ignored for years. When a woman is repeatedly disrespected, and the man who promised to protect her tells her to stay quiet instead, that isn't a misunderstanding. It's a choice. That night, his mother didn't just insult me. She said it clearly, confidently, in front of everyone. And my husband sat right beside me. And said nothing. That was the moment I knew this marriage was already over. And it started with one sentence, spoken across a holiday dinner table. "You're completely inadequate, Emma. I honestly don't know why my son ever married you." The words cut straight through the warmth of the holiday dinner. I froze, my fork hovering in midair, a piece of roasted asparagus growing cold before it ever reached my mouth. We were seated around a long, carefully decorated table in my mother-in-law's house, the kind of place that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Soft lights glowed from a crystal chandelier above us, casting everything in a golden haze that suddenly felt harsh and unforgiving. Diane sat at the head of the table, perfectly composed. Her silver blonde hair was styled immaculately, a strand of pearls resting against her navy cashmere sweater. Just moments earlier, she had criticized the dessert I'd spent half the night preparing, calling it bland and poorly executed, loudly, and in front of everyone. When I had gently mentioned that it was a family recipe passed down from my grandmother, she didn't hesitate. That's when she said it. "Useless. I'm Emma." I was 31 years old at the time. And I had been married to Ryan for 4 years. He sat right beside me. I turned toward him instinctively, waiting for him to say something, anything, to acknowledge what had just happened. He didn't even look up. He kept slicing his turkey as if his mother had commented on the weather. "Ryan," I said quietly, my voice barely steady. "Did you hear what your mother just said to me?" He let out a slow, irritated sigh. The kind that made it clear I was the inconvenience. "Emma, please," he muttered. "It's the holidays. Do we really need to do this right now?" "Do what?" I asked, my heart beginning to pound. "Ask you to notice that your mother just called me useless in front of your entire family?" Diane scoffed from across the table. "Oh, here we go. Always playing the victim," she said. "I warned you, Ryan. Marrying a woman who can't handle the slightest criticism was a mistake." Heat rushed to my face, embarrassment mixing with something sharper. Around the table sat Ryan's aunt, his cousin and her husband, and his father, who was suddenly very interested in his mashed potatoes. No one said a word. "Diane," I said, finally finding my voice, "that wasn't criticism." The room went quiet. Criticism would be saying the dessert was too dry or the recipe needed work. Calling me inadequate is an insult. And I'm not going to pretend it's anything else. Ryan's fork clattered against his plate. He turned toward me with an expression I had never seen before, cold, controlled, almost hostile. "Emma," he said, lowering his voice, "do not speak to my mother like that." "She just insulted me," I replied. "In front of everyone." "She's entitled to her opinion," he said flatly. "And honestly, if you can't be around my family without causing drama, maybe you should leave for a bit." The words hit harder than the insult itself. I stared at him, searching for the man I thought I'd married, the one who had promised partnership, loyalty, protection. I didn't find him. "You want me to leave?" I asked quietly. "If you can't respect my mother," he replied, "yes. Go cool off. Come back when you're ready to apologize." Apologize. I looked around the table one last time. Eyes avoided mine. Napkins were adjusted. Conversations whispered. And Diane? Diane was smiling. Subtle, satisfied. In that moment, something inside me shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It felt more like a door that had been closing for years, finally clicking shut. I realized then what I had refused to admit for a long time. Ryan was never going to choose me. He never had. I placed my napkin neatly on the table and stood up. My legs felt unsteady, but I refused to let it show. I walked to the entryway, pulled on my coat, and turned back. "Emma, where are you going?" Ryan called, irritation outweighing concern. "You told me to leave," I said calmly. "So I am." "I didn't mean actually leave," he snapped. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "For once, I'm being honest with myself." I stepped out into the freezing night air. The door didn't open behind me. No footsteps followed. No one called my name. As I walked toward my car, breath clouding in the winter darkness, I understood something with painful clarity. I wasn't leaving because of one insult at dinner. I was leaving because of years of him. I didn't go far that night. I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching warm light spill from the windows of Diane's house. Laughter drifted faintly through the walls, muffled but unmistakable. Dinner had resumed. Without me. That realization settled deep in my chest. By the time I drove back to the apartment Ryan and I shared in Bellevue, the streets were empty. I unlocked the door quietly, half expecting him to follow me home, to call, to explain. He didn't. Instead, I found a text message waiting on my phone. "Ryan, you embarrassed my mother tonight. We'll talk when you're ready to apologize." I stared at the screen. Apologize for being insulted. I placed my phone face down on the kitchen counter and leaned against it, letting the silence fill the room. The apartment felt strangely impersonal, like a space staged for someone else's life. That wasn't new. Over the years, I had slowly learned how to make myself smaller inside this marriage. It hadn't happened all at once. When Ryan and I first met, I was working as a marketing analyst for a mid-sized tech firm. I was independent, outspoken, and excited about the future. Ryan admired that, at least, he said he did. But Diane never hid her disapproval. She commented on my clothes. My career choices. The way I spoke. The way I laughed too loudly at dinners. At first, Ryan brushed it off. "She's just blunt," he'd say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." Then the excuses changed. "She had a hard life. She's protective of me. You're taking it too personally." And slowly, without realizing it, I started adjusting. I chose my words more carefully around her. I laughed less. I stopped disagreeing. I told myself this was marriage, compromise, patience, maturity. But compromise only works when it goes both ways. The first time I asked Ryan to set boundaries, it was after Diane showed up unannounced to our apartment and reorganized my kitchen while I was at work. I came home to find my cabinets rearranged and a note on the counter. "I fixed it. You'll thank me later." Ryan had shrugged. She was just trying to help. Help. That word came up a lot. When Diane criticized my cooking. When she commented on our finances. When she hinted that Ryan could have done better. Ryan never defended me. Not once. Instead, he defended the peace, his peace. That night, alone in the apartment, I began to see the pattern clearly. Diane could say anything. I was expected to absorb it. And Ryan's role was to make sure I stayed quiet enough not to disrupt the family dynamic. My phone buzzed again. "Ryan, Mom's really upset. You should call her tomorrow." I let out a hollow laugh. She insulted me, and I was expected to make it right. I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. Half of it was filled with Ryan's clothes. Neatly pressed. Organized. My side looked messy. I thought about all the small moments I'd dismissed over the years. The times I swallowed my feelings to keep dinners pleasant. The times I apologized just to move on. The way my confidence had slowly eroded, piece by piece. This wasn't about one holiday dinner. It was about a marriage where I was always last. That night, I slept on the couch. Ryan didn't come home until nearly 2 in the morning. When he did, he didn't wake me, didn't apologize, didn't ask if I was okay. He went straight to bed. The next morning, he acted as if nothing had happened. "Are you still upset?" he asked casually while pouring coffee. "You know how my mother is." That was the moment something finally settled inside me. If I stayed, this would be my life. Endless explanations. Endless apologies. Endless silence. I looked at Ryan, really looked at him, and realized he wasn't confused. He was comfortable. And comfort, in this case, came at my expense. As he left for work, he grabbed his coat and said, almost as an afterthought, "Try not to make things worse today. I'll talk to Mom later." I watched the door close behind him. For the first time, the thought didn't terrify me. It clarified me. Because deep down, I already knew something I had been afraid to say out loud. If I kept choosing this marriage, I would keep losing myself. That afternoon, I didn't cry. I cleaned. I wiped down the counters, folded laundry, lined up shoes by the door, small, mindless tasks that kept my hands busy while my thoughts finally began to settle into something sharp and clear. This wasn't an emotional outburst. It was a pattern I had ignored for years. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop, telling myself I was just going to check emails. Instead, I found myself staring at our shared calendar. Family dinners. Birthdays. Holidays. Almost every event centered around Ryan's family. I scrolled back. My parents' anniversary dinner, cancelled. My cousin's wedding, I attended alone because Ryan had work. Thanksgiving with my family, postponed indefinitely. Somehow, his family's comfort had always come first. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. For the first time, I asked myself a question I'd been avoiding. What do I get out of this marriage? Not what I used to get. Not what I hoped for. What I had now. The answer was quiet. Stability, maybe. Familiarity. But partnership? No. That evening, I called my mother. I hadn't planned to tell her everything. I just wanted to hear a voice that didn't make me feel small. But as soon as she asked, "Are you okay?" the words spilled out. The dinner. The insult. Ryan telling me to leave. There was a long pause on the line. "Emma," she said gently, "why are you surprised?" Her question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "You've been protecting him for years," she said. "Every time we asked how you were, you told us it was fine. But it never sounded fine." I closed my eyes. "I didn't want to fail," I admitted. "This isn't failure," she replied. "It's information." That sentence stayed with me. Later that night, Ryan came home and sat across from me at the kitchen table. He looked tired. Irritated. "We need to move past this," he said. "Mom didn't mean it the way you took it." "I'm not moving past it," I said calmly. He frowned. "So what, you want an apology?" "I want you to acknowledge that it was wrong," I replied. "And I want you to stop defending it." Ryan leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You're asking me to choose between you and my mother." "No," I said. "I'm asking you to choose respect." He laughed softly, not kindly. "You're being dramatic again." That word. Dramatic. The same label that had kept me quiet for years. I stood up slowly. "I'm going to stay with my sister for a while," I said. Ryan's head snapped up. "You're overreacting." "I'm taking space," I replied. "You can think about what that means." He scoffed. "You'll be back in a few days." "You always come back." That confidence, that assumption, was the final confirmation I needed. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was sure I wouldn't leave. I packed a bag that night. Not everything. Just enough. Clothes for a week. My laptop. Documents. Things that belonged to me. As I zipped the suitcase, I noticed how calm I felt. No shaking hands. No racing heart. Just resolve. At the door, Ryan didn't stop me. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask me to stay. He simply said, "Don't turn this into something bigger than it needs to be." I looked at him, truly looked at him, and realized he still didn't understand. This was the something. When the door closed behind me, the hallway felt quieter than I expected. I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. Staying at my sister's place felt strange at first. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. Her apartment was smaller, louder, imperfect. Shoes by the door. Half-finished coffee cups on the counter. A space that didn't feel staged or monitored. For the first time in a long while, I could breathe. Ryan didn't call that night. Or the next morning. Instead, I received a message from Diane. "Diane, I hope you realize how disrespectful your behavior was. Families don't abandon each other over hurt feelings." I stared at the text for a long moment. She still believed this was about her feelings. I didn't respond. That evening, Ryan finally called. His tone was different, measured, almost careful. "You've made your point," he said. "This has gone far enough." I nearly laughed. "I didn't make a point," I replied. "I made a decision." Silence. "You're staying with your sister?" he asked. "For now." He sighed. "Mom's been really upset. She feels attacked." "Interesting," I said quietly. "She called me inadequate in front of your family. But she's the one who feels attacked." "That's not fair," he snapped. "You know how she is." "Yes," I said. "And now I know how you are too." The line went quiet again. I told her you didn't mean to offend her, he said finally. My chest tightened. You apologized for me, I said. I smoothed things over, he replied. That's what adults do. No, I said firmly. That's what people do when they're afraid of conflict. His patience cracked. So what do you want from me? He demanded. An apology? For my mother? I want accountability, I said. And I want to know if you're capable of putting your wife first. He didn't answer. Not right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was colder. I'm not cutting my mother out of my life because you're sensitive. There it was. Not misunderstanding. Not confusion. A choice. I never asked you to cut her out, I said. I asked you to stop letting her hurt me. Well, maybe you should learn to toughen up, he replied. My family doesn't walk on eggshells. I felt something settle inside me. A finality. I'll come by this weekend to pick up the rest of my things, I said. What? His voice rose. Emma, don't do this. I already am, I replied. The call started after that. Apologies that weren't really apologies. I'm sorry you felt hurt. This all got out of hand. You're blowing this up. Then the pressure. We can't just throw away a marriage. Think about what people will say. Mom didn't raise me to abandon my family. Each message made it clearer. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of explaining my absence. When I returned to the apartment that weekend, Ryan was waiting. I thought we could talk, he said. We are talking, I replied, calmly loading boxes into my car. You're really doing this? He asked. Yes. This is over one dinner? I stopped and looked at him. No, I said. This is over years of being second. He had no response to that. As I drove away, I checked my phone. A message from Diane. Diane, if you walk away now, don't expect to be welcomed back. I smiled faintly. That was never my goal. Because in that moment, I finally understood something that changed everything. I wasn't losing a family. I was leaving a system that required my silence to survive. I didn't rush the divorce. I took my time. For the first few weeks, I stayed with my sister, rebuilt routines, and allowed the silence to do its work. No constant criticism. No walking on eggshells. No bracing myself before every conversation. The peace was undeniable. Ryan continued to reach out, cautiously at first, then with growing urgency. I miss you. This doesn't feel real. Can we just talk? I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply stayed consistent. I'm not coming back, I told him once. Not unless things fundamentally change. They didn't. What changed instead was his world. Without me buffering every interaction, Diane's behavior turned inward. She criticized him the way she had criticized me. Questioned his decisions. Commented on his failures. And this time, there was no one there to absorb it. Ryan called me late one night, his voice tense. She's impossible, he said. Nothing I do is good enough. I listened quietly. That's how she's always been, I replied. You just didn't feel it before. Silence followed. I didn't realize how much you handled, he admitted. I let the words hang. Because understanding, after the damage is done, doesn't undo it. When I finally moved my things into a small apartment of my own, it felt like stepping into a life that actually belonged to me. No one rearranged my kitchen. No one commented on my choices. No one told me I was too much, or not enough. The divorce papers were signed 3 months later. Ryan didn't fight them. By then, he was exhausted. Diane, I heard, wasn't pleased. She told relatives I had given up too easily. That I was overly sensitive. But her words carried less weight now. People had noticed the pattern. And patterns, once seen, can't be unseen. A year later, I ran into Ryan at a coffee shop near my office. He looked older. Quieter. We exchanged polite words. I'm sorry, he said finally. I should have defended you. I nodded. I know. But I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. And it didn't need to be. As I walked away, I realized something important. Leaving wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of self-respect. I didn't lose a marriage. I reclaimed myself.